Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wisdom from the Field. We have a special guest coming back, Rabbi Zalman Teichtel. We had him here half a year ago. Thank you, Zalman, for coming back.
Great to be back, Shkoyach. I didn't realize how popular your podcast is. Wow. So many people were sharing with me feedback, thoughts, comments, question, criticism, of course, Kiminik Hasidim. And it's
Yes.
very, very special to see the impact you're having on so many shluchim. Shkoyach for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Zalman. Just share how this came about. I don't remember, but I think I saw you were going to do a session or speak at the Kiddush. So I reached out to you. I was like, oh, Hatzlacha on your talk. And if I remember correctly, you're like, my flight was canceled. I'm not able to go. So the idea came to my head is, oh, we have to have you back. You could make up for that chesed. So
It's
took
interesting because
a little time, and we're here.
that session at the Kiddush was a result of that podcast.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I did not
They
know that.
asked me to hear the podcast, so they asked me to come to bring about it some more. So yeah, a lot of good things are happening, Baruch Hashem, from the
Oh,
great shluchas that you're doing.
beautiful, thank you. Another thing that happened between is then you're talking about the building, and now you're in it. So
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. The zechus shabachoyim imanu. Every day I walk into the Chabad house and it's like, wow, is this taka real?
wow,
It's
wow,
I saw a nice vart about Yehuda that it says Apam Eides Hashem, and the Medrash says that Leah was the first one who thanked Hashem. That's not true. Noach thanked Hashem. Even Adam thanked Hashem. What does it mean? He's the first one who thanked Hashem. So the Taich is he was the first. She was the first. She named her son Yehuda so that every single time she sees him, she says, "Thank you, Hashem."
huh.
Crazy to thank Hashem the first time. Shkoyach, wow, I had a good meeting, had a good pool. But every single time, every single day, I feel when I walk into this building, such a ness that apam eides Hashem and apam nachamal.
Wow.
Every single day, I'm thanking the Eibishter and the Rebbe for the unbelievable brachas that we see here. It's a game changer. It took our shluchas to a whole new place, and very,
Wow.
very thankful to Hashem, Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe's
Sure.
brachas.
May the brachas continue and your
Amen.
shlichus continue to go to whole new farnam.
Weiter and weiter. So I had a meeting this morning, actually, a fundraising meeting, and I asked the person, "You have any advice for me?" Because it's always good to ask people for their opinion. People love talking about themselves. And he said, "My advice to you is like, I know these Chabad rabbis, they always like to do more and more. Like, just take some time to like be with this building a little bit. Like, let it sink in. Just be a little bit present, and then in a year you could start thinking about, what more you can do." It was like you got the wrong address. It's not how it works at Chabad. The building at the grand opening, we're like, okay, what's the next project?
Yeah, beautiful. So you did mention to me that like you mentioned earlier, you did Baruch Hashem get good feedback, and you had some anything you wanted to share based from the feedback of your
Well, I
last.
don't expect anybody listening to this to remember the podcast because it was a long time ago. I think it was 5, 6, 7 months ago. I remember it was in our other office, our temporary location. But I'm going to share a little bit about some interesting follow up. I got a few interesting things that I think would be good for the Elam to hear, to think about. Number one, I spoke a lot in that podcast. I think in the description you wrote, "Beard his soul." I was very open, raw. And I spoke a lot about the very difficult years of the shlichus in the beginning. And I got unbelievable feedback from so many people about how much that meant to them. It was very moving to see how good it feels to be validated, how okay it felt to get electricity cut off. I'm not saying it's a good plan. I'm just saying it's the reality.
Right.
And how it felt, for every single credit card to be maxed and you can't get gas. So many shulchan were like, "Was that story real? For real?" And after I said it was real, okay, let me tell you my story.
Hmm.
It's very, very special to see that. Number one, the first point I want to share is the validation. It's a good thing. I know B'chlal, men are emotionally constipated. It's very difficult to do that. And when we come to the kinnis, everybody likes to talk about the major atzlachis. I was once at a regional kinnis where Shliach got up after multiple stories. And after everyone's saying they're missing, he gets up. He's like, "Let me tell you my ness." And he pours out his heart. And he spoke about how his house was in foreclosure. He's losing his house. He's becoming homeless. And how a student was banging on the door to come meet him, and he was not up for it. Wasn't a headspace, and he was under so much pressure and so much worry. And one of his kids and Mises, and it was very, very, it was very gut wrenching to hear him say his story. And he's like, "This is my nest that I'm on shlichus every day." And his point was that it's important to talk about those things as well. Incidentally, I want to mention that that particular shlichus happened like 15 years ago. 4 years later, just happened to be he has a massive building now that he miraculously acquired, four
Wow.
stories, and many nisim. So my point is, everyone has those nisim.
Right.
But I think it's very valuable to validate. And I listened to many of your podcasts, and I think the ones that resonate with people and with me and others, based on my feedback that I got, is to talk about the Shredderkeiten, not in a way of getting sunken and stuck in them, but a way of recognizing that that's part of it. That's part of the journey. I saw something yesterday, mamash bashkacha pratis, maybe in preparation for today, because we were meeting. But I saw yesterday a very, very valuable answer that the Rebbe gave to a shliach and a shlucha. That it says that in Tishrei, Tafshim Memches, one of the shluchas in Eretz Yisrael, wrote to the Rebbe that her and her husband having a very hard time. And the Rebbe wrote, "Bevada yodas shalakol shliach u'bnei beisei sheyifyu hayu bayos bahaschalas avedas hakodesh daimos le'elu shekiseves oideisa." I'm sure you know that every single shliach and his family had problems in the beginning, similar to the problems you're writing about. The safe is gabru aleim v'hitzlichu, and ultimately they won over them and they were successful. V'gam meisifim avedas hakodesh, and they're continuing even more. And the Rebbe says that tikvasi sheshneim ishtatfu ba'kinos techaf mar cheshven abal leinu l'teva. I hope that both of you will participate in the kinos coming up. There was a kinos in Eretz Yisrael now for shluchim, chaf mar cheshven. And the Rebbe highlighted, underlined, V'yishmu panim al panim, the Rebbe underlined panim al panim, and they should hear face to face, al dvar kol zeh, v'kama ma shluchim u'bnei beisam. They should hear firsthand from shluchim and their families, v'yiratzat sheyikrim avdachas atayra lefum tzara agna.
Wow.
And I sent this to, I posted it somewhere actually in a group, and I got a message from a shliach saying it was great timing. I actually sent this to my neighbor shliach who was going through a very, very difficult time. And he told him he gave him a lot of chizuk. And
Wow.
in that same place, I also posted a letter, an answer that Rebbe gave Josh Gordon, where the Rebbe said that kama v'kama pamim b'avidasa magdesha nidma lahem shahamatziv agevalt. Many, many times it seemed like Yematzah was agevalt. The nepach l'toiv anirev anigle. V'yisyatsu kanal. You should be miyayitz with people. V'yikaimu etzivu trachkud v'zayin v'yavas v'tev.
Wow.
So Ashkacha brought this. I messaged you Tzviki already last week that I'm going to talk about this topic, and then Mamish, I saw this minus published somewhere, these two answers together, and maybe I can send it. You can put in the notes the link to it
Yeah, for
because I
sure.
think it's very valuable to see this, and maybe Yoshiach can print this and have this. It's very, very normal to get Shveda Tzaitin. Here we see a clear answer from the Rebbe about it, but the good news is everything works out. And it's actually interesting that quite a few shluchim that I speak to different shluchim just to help them out a little bit. And when I reflect on some of those journeys that I had with these shluchim, and I'm sure you see this too, speaking in your work, I mamish see like a year later, maybe 5 months later, depending on a lot of those things that they were so worried about is like, a distant dream.
Hmm.
So I think the validation is important. I think it's important that when we speak to fellow shluchim, we hear them out and understand the challenges they're going through. But at the same time, so they're manin that Yehudim b'tiva l'mayla min hateva. And the Rebbe
Right.
says clearly that this is what we do. This is part of the process. It's part of the initiation into the club.
Right.
Sometimes you have it 20 years in too. It's fine. It's not kalas chalas kashas. Doesn't mean only the aschala of shlichus. It could be aschala of your day or your week.
Interesting. The schal of a new tkufa.
Youth kufa, absolutely. So
Right.
I wanted to share that nakuda. Not major chiddush, but just it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay to us. And the
Yeah.
second thing I want to share is something that also came out from that podcast. I spoke. You asked me a very good question. I spent 20, 30 minutes talking about how hard it was in the beginning and how difficult it was. Then I spent 20, 30 minutes talking about how things have changed and how things could be done differently. And then you asked me, like, what made the change? What was the biggest change, right? So I shared with you at the time something which became even more solidified since then, both for me and for conversations with other shulchim, is how much of it is mamish in our head. And
Hmm.
I shared with you that I was living in a place in my mind, in a place of oive, and in a place of, it's not working and there's no one to fundraise from, and then I'm embarrassed and I'm gonna want to ask. And the biggest shift was the mind shift
Hmm.
of understanding the zechus that we have and the opportunity we're giving people and to fundraise from the top of the mountain from a place of strength. And changing the whole attitudes.
Hmm.
and the whole mind shift, and how the biggest blockage was really in my head. And once I started fundraising from a whole different way, I saw unbelievable nisim and influence, including today when I met somebody and he was trying to push me to, just take a loan, don't worry about it, a mortgage. And I was like, no, we don't talk that language. It's not existing in me. So using the power of the mind,
Hmm.
which I spoke about last podcast, I've seen it tremendously. After the podcast, I was speaking to other shluchim, and I have one particular shliach in mind who I was working with a little bit too. Was so primitive and so clean keppeldik, and so thinking like, I'm telling you, I have no one in my community is shaykh to give. It's not happening. And we took some time, went through the names, and I said, you could do it. I'm telling you. I actually pushed him to get an office out of his home because he was working out of his house, and it was,
Hmm.
well, he's like, it's not gonna, I can't afford it. By the way, there's a building here that a Jew owns. I said, go to that Jew. No, I don't know him. I said, go and ask him. Sure enough, the guy gave it to him, 50% rent off, and
Wow.
it's all in the head. So I want to reiterate that because I see even so much more since we spoke last. How we push it have to do b'dikas chametz every single day. B'dikas biur chametz means head trash. We push it have to come. We have to burn the head trash.
Hmm.
Any voice in our head that's coming from a place of weakness, any voice in our head that says not shaykh, we push it, have to eradicate it. The cheyu b'shtei yadayim. And I feel I have a right to say this because I practice it and I really work on it. And sometimes I have meetings, big fundraising meetings that I'm nervous about, and before I walk in, I push to go like this, like yain kasha pachad mashige, like the tzemach tzedek. I go like this, and I'm like, that's it. The guy said yes, absolutely. It's a shlichus for him. Done. The power of the mind is unbelievable. When I was a bachar mivtzaim, as a bachar alter zal, I used to go mivtzaim to a big building, 45-story building on 34th and 7th. And you have to take 3 elevators to get to the top floor because every 15 floors another elevator. Those who live in big cities with big buildings. In my town, the biggest building is 5 stories, but in normal places you have big buildings. And I remember one Friday I go into the first I go into the lobby, I go into the elevator, and I'm with my chavris. All of a sudden, a guy walks in. He takes a key out of his pocket. He turns a key and flies straight up to the 45th floor.
Hmm.
So he notices we're looking at him. He's like, "What's going on over here?" I never knew elevators have the capacity, have the achilas to go to. I thought they could only go to the 15th. And he looks at us. He smiles and he says 2 words: "Owner's prerogative."
Huh.
The Jewish guy, Steve Kaufman. He owns the building. He owns a bunch of buildings in Manhattan. So I was very excited, and right away I turned to my chaver, my fellow was a bacher who went the same thing. I was like, "Avart, owner's prerogative." If you walk into that meeting, owner's prerogative, I own the building. Then you could override anything. You go to the top floor, you come on the 100th floor, you're done. So since then, I planted that in my head, and I really think it's all in the head. If we come in, owner's prerogative, and that's how we built this building, and that's how we try to fundraise. You come in with a shtel, with a shturim, with a Rebbe Shliach, with a balabas. The reason why the world was created, the reason why you're created, the reason why your money was created was for this moment. Then, so go down to the Zach. One more thing I'll tell you before I'll be quiet a little bit.
Yeah. No.
I want to hear from you. I saw recently a very interesting article from Rabbi Yale was printed in the Kfar Chabad. It was a speech that Yale gave to a group of shluchim in Eretz Yisrael, and he said to the no, it was actually I think it was like CT shluchim and YJP shluchim. So he spoke and he said the following. He said, "A shliach told me once that when he learns chassidus in the morning, it's an andere tag." So Yale says, I thought to myself that it makes sense. You learn chassidus in the morning, andere tag. So brengt er aan een bissel chayes in je. But then he said, no, it's a tiffer from them. Why? The same shliach told me, he continued, he said, let me tell you, give you a mashal. He said it was punkt before Chanukah, and I wasn't feeling good. Because that day, I had to go to City Hall to get the permit for the menorah. And every year, they're making me come, ka'ani bepetach, like a schnorrer. They make me go through every year cycle, the mices, and it doesn't feel good. It's a pusher. They make me do it every year, and I feel a little bit like a schlepper. And I wasn't excited about going. And I knew I have to go 1 o'clock that day. I had to go. So that morning, punkt, I learned the mimer from the Rebbe. And that particular mimer, no, sorry, it was a sicha, chilik vav, the sicha about yam le'isane, t'nai hit HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They made a t'nai with the yam, with the water, that you're only being created, but t'nai that you separate when I want you to separate. And the whole sicha is basically the teva alein. It's not meshubah to the Eibishter. Teva alein is the Eibishter. Teva, nature, is a manifestation of Hashem. So even Teva is just a concealment, but is really just a expression of Hashem's presence. He says, I finished that sikha. He said, I came to City Hall. I walked in like I owned City Hall. I walked in. I was like, I'm here for the permit. Let me have the permit. And he said, it was such a different guy. And the shliach tells Yael that since then, like, I go every year permit. It's like a whole different story. So Yael was basically saying, he finishes off saying that I thought learning chassidus is geschmack because it's a nice geschmack, is chayes in your day. Then I realized, no, it's shana the whole mahuz. It changes your whole frame of mind. You become the owner. It's badai, it's bait against zach. So that's the nakuda that I wanted to share because a lot of shulchan were telling me that's taka true, taka in your head. The answer is absolutely yes. We built the building now, Baruch Hashem. We finished ahead of schedule on the budget. We built an entire building in 12 months.
Wow.
And people are like, how did you do it? How did you do it? I'll tell you, the MS, you push it, have to have that mindset. And even the goyim who may not understand that, because all of our team here were not Jewish and not part of our, we didn't hire any friends for anything. They were like, Rabbi, that's not how it works in construction. Like, that's how it works for this Chabad house. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out.
Timeline? The timing it should take longer. The timeline should be longer.
Yeah, different things come up. Yeah, longer. And then the bank, when I with the bank, and we did something miraculous with the bank. I mean, I decided to build without a loan because we don't need a loan, but then I ran out of money in the middle, but I couldn't stop. So I tried to find the bank, and everyone said no banks didn't give you a loan. It's true. Called many banks. No one gives you a loan in the middle of construction, especially a nonprofit. And then one bank said no on the phone. I said, please come take a look. And the owner of the bank came, small bank, and not only we got the loan, we got it closed in 2.5 weeks. We got
Wow.
terms that no one even believes we got. And they themselves don't understand, wow, how did this happen so quickly? And I think because they appreciate and they realize that you have to operate on a different wavelength. You have to operate with an oifen of, it's a done deal, it's happening, this is what the Rebbe wants, this is what the Ibn Kavanah is. And then now we have to figure out how the rest of the world will catch up and get that. But this has to be the guide. It's all in the mind.
Wow. Wow. Super powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. As
Hold
you're
on. I think we did. Mr. L'chaim, you have L'chaim, but you're in the office.
I don't. I have tea.
Uh-huh.
I
Okay.
can make them tea.
Because one
And
timer that we got,
outdated.
one timer that I got a shtickle taina from some shluchim that when I spoke at the podcast, I made it all sound like it's all systemized and and I didn't talk enough about the Rebbe and about
It's all
how
teva.
Malam and Ateva. So maybe now I can make that up. You start for following. So push the zach. I didn't even need a disclaimer that everything is Lamalam and Ateva. The Eibishter wants us to make Kekeli. The Rebbe wants us to make Kekeli. I was recently reading Hey Tavis, how when the Rebbe called in Aguch for that very important Yechidus, very famous Yechidus, the Rebbe told Aguch very clear, I want this to be Al Pi Teva. I want you to find a way that lawyers should use their own Teva. The whole Chiddush B'chal of Chayesar Non Beis is Yichel Ma'uban. Is that the Rebbe says there's an Eved, there's a Metzias of a Shliach. But the Shliach's Metzias is really durchgenommen with the Metzias of the Meshaleach. But there is a Metzias of Teva. So I was speaking about that Nakuda of Teva, but I think it's very important to remember, no question, that it's all Lamaylam in Teva. So the Lamaylam in Teva, I think, is a fuel that fuels us to go into Teva. Like Nichlas B'Shalom, Yatsa B'Shalom, what's the reason why Rabbi Kiva is only one Yatsa B'Shalom? Because Nichlas B'Shalom, Shem Bayachai, right? Because Nichlas B'Shalom, Yatsa B'Shalom. If you go into Teva believing that Teva is the reality, then you're going to get lost in Teva. And you're going to get fafirt. If you go into Teva because you know that this is all Eibishter, and this is how the Eibishter wants it to be manifest and expressed, and this, by the way, is the famous sikha of Shmei Chalam Dal. They speak about this idea that Teva Alain is the Eibishter. Not that it's a separate entity that Hashem wants us to be machshev, but that is Eibishter. So then Yatsa B'Shalom. So it's obvious. I have an uncle Fitche Itkin, Allah B'Shalom, who was a real Geshmaka Chassid, Shliach. He was a walking Fabrengen, a real Chassidish Yid who always inspired many Shluchim and Chassidim. I once heard him say at a Fabrengen that he once came, when my parents were moving out of their apartment into a house in Crown Heights, he came to help them. And the mover was carrying a very big dresser down the steps of the apartment building. And my uncle said, I can give you a hand. He said, don't touch, don't touch. Like, why can't I touch? He says, because I have an insurance policy. If I'm the only one carrying it and it damages the wall or it damages the dresser, my insurance policy will cover it. But if you touch it, even one pinky, then the insurance policy is not going to cover it anymore because you're liable. So Fitch said like this: the Rebbe is carrying us. Don't mix in your seichel.
Uh,
Don't say but this is Keichi ve'etzem yadi yasig es achayil hazeh. Darf gedenken that the Rebbe is doing all of this. We are just doing our part because the Rebbe wants us to make a keli. Derech Agav, for those who listen to Sicha Yemis, which is such a geschmack I think to do, by the way, really anchors the day every single day. It's 10 minutes. Amazing app. You have it right in front of you. It's like Gavaldik. Last week on Monday or Tuesday, I was talking about how a man comes home from work and he feels so good about his day. Look how hard I worked. Look how much money I made. And his wife, the Rebbe says, doesn't bring out a Maimach Chassidus, doesn't even bring out a Musa Sefer. She just opens up the Siddur for benching. And she shows him, Azana Sa'ilam Kulei
uh,
B'chazdei. And the Rebbe says, the Freud that Peilanei von Man is al Gedenken, von wann it kommt die alle Brachas. So this kid,
wow.
my version, this kid said, Pasha, the Rebbe said, Mestame hat geessen zweimal dem Tag. Zweimal hat gebencht. So zweimal hat gesehen, the Pasha das auch.
Wow.
Chaim, we should remember that we have to work hard, we have to make kalim, we have to pound the pavement, and we have to make systems. I'm a big believer in systems. And I think we have to, but at the same time, we have to remember what it's really, really all about and what's behind it. What's the fire, the fuel that's making it happen. I actually saw also, I
Yeah.
heard a story, didn't know who it's about, but recently I heard who it's about. But I probably shouldn't share in the podcast because it's not public. But there was a shliach who was very much shliach. And then Chadakov called him in and told him that we're giving you now another area we want you to expand in and to build a mikveh there. And he said, it's not shaykh. I said, I'm very honored and humbled that the board of directors thought that I'm a good person for this expansion project. But I don't have the capacity for it. I'm maxed. So Chadakov said to him, aha, ich verstehe. So busy as meinst du es also gewesen dir? It's like, till now was all you, so now you made a calculation. Till now it was me. I know my limits, so I can't do any more. Yeah, so it was never you from the beginning. Just like this was done, that's going to be done. So he chapped sich. He said, no, I'll do it. And he said, no, it's too late. It's
Hmm.
you missed the point. Didn't get it. So
Wow.
when I see myself, even with all my systems and trying to be organized, that when it gets to my head too much, that's when I see blockages.
Hmm.
So finding that balance is very important.
Wow. Yeah, as you mentioned something about Hey Tavis. Someone's forbidding us listening to Hey Tavis a few weeks ago. Um, they were referencing that what by the Alter Rebbe, by Yitzhak Kislev, I think it was the Bardishever said that the Alter Rebbe could have, burned down the entire Petersburg. He
Yeah.
wanted it to go, he wanted it to go through Teva, right? They're referencing Hey Tavis that everyone wanted, Dir Tachlenu Adei Tachlenu, right? The Velt Lane should know there's a Rebbe, right? So yeah, you're just making me think about it. The Rebbe could do it, in ganz Island at Teva, but he wants it to be through Velt.
On that note, I actually heard a very nice thing out of Fabrengen once from Yossi Nemes. He said a very powerful word, which makes a lot of sense. By the way, if you look in the Mugadik Zechus of Hey Tevis, Nunalef, Tashanun, even I think, it says on top, Yem, or in the bottom of the footnote, the
Right.
Mishpat Federali, like this was the
Right.
day when the federal court justice system realized what a Rebbe is. So
Right.
the whole Hey Tevis is Teva, Megala, the truth.
Right.
So I mean, never said a good word, and that is that just like the Alter Rebbe, why the Alter Rebbe could have verbrennen ganz Peterburg, right? He could have moved his finger and burnt the whole Peterburg. Why did he do it? Because he wanted to ufta the Inyan of Achri Peterburg. So Chassidus should be more b'shefa, which only comes through the Shverakaiten. Hey Tavis, perhaps we could say a heritage is a gift that Rebbe gave us for post Gimel Tammuz, his kashrus. Because one may say post Gimel Tammuz Teva rules, and al pi Teva we don't see the Rebbe, we don't hear the Rebbe. So is his kashrus shayach anymore? But Hey Tavis shows us that Teva Lane is all part of the system and it's all under the
Hmm.
Eibishter's rule and the Rebbe's direction. So what that means is that Hey Tavis is a yomtiv that allows us to understand today that it's not a stira for the world itself to understand what a Rebbe is
Hmm.
and how 20, 30 years later, nach starke, nach lebedike. In other words, the federal court realized that a Rebbe lapsed after his talkus. And that's the gift of Hetavis. And that's the gift that Rebbe gave us, because the Rebbe could have arranged that it should have happened without the whole federal thing. The Rebbe wants us in Welt today, in Tafshin Peivav, to deher this nakuda, that it's not a stida. And we see today that the world actually accepts the Rebbe as a Rebbe who's present, who's here, who's leading, who's guiding. That's the nakuda.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Tava aleinu zecha von Tov.
Yeah. So in just to bring it back, the Rebbe could make that every shliach has infinite revenue coming
Ad
in,
bri day.
but he wanted that it should be through the avodah, But to Megala the Tev of course, that through the avodah, through the work, like you said, making the kalim, you'll see the harchava pashim
We
begashmias.
see it in our donors, our balabatim, our partners, that their lives become transformed through their giving, which is really the whole nakuda of fundraising. That's what a shadar was, right? Um, to plant beruchnias and to
Right,
reap
right,
begashmias.
right.
So we see the transformation it has on the people who become partners.
Could you
Is that
share
right?
like an anecdote or something, or someone that that through their giving you saw how that changed them around?
Absolutely, 1,000%. You have people that are friends of Chabad. Friends of Chabad remain friends of Chabad. Merachek Havaya Nidali.
Right,
Merachek Hashem Nidali. Chabad's great. My backyard, Chabad's great. I love Chabad. Chabad's great. When someone transitions from a friend to a partner, you see tremendous, tremendous transformations. I don't like to show you personal stories because I know these podcasts go viral and the whole world hears, but many, many stories of people that while they were friends, it was always nice and fine. But the moment they gave, what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, chaye nafshe. Someone gives you money, they're giving chaye nafshe mamish.
right. Their
It
heart,
elevates the
earned.
whole Messias. It elevates everything. You see such a big difference in the hergish to Yiddishkeit and their openness to Yiddishkeit and their connection to the Rebbe. Huge,
Wow.
huge. I believe that if you look at your list of people in your circle, so let's say I'm speaking to Shliach, listening to this podcast, you have a list of people who are in your orbits. You have the people who are active donors, and you have the people that are on your onboarding list. But you want to bring them on board. Compare the two lists. You'll see for yourself. The people who give, it transforms their connection. It's a much more deeper connection and commitment and bond. So it's definitely Mashana the Mahus. Think about yourself, even the stucca that you do, whatever it may be. But even the little stucca that you do, if you think about it, you care about those moised more.
Right, right,
You care about it. When I go to Crown Heights and I bump into a guy who fundraises for Central Moised, who I give to because I care about it, and I see him, I'm excited to see him if I barely know him. Because I feel a connection to the Moised. You called me, you asked me, I gave maybe once or twice in the year. Feel a connection
right,
the way it is. So I think that the transformation that it has is huge. That's why you want to get these people to give, not because you need the money, because look what
right,
it does to the neshama.
right. I was thinking that you're talking about mindset, like a lot of, I think, the hesitations that come up when you want to ask them for money is like, money, all these uncomfortable things, but if you get into the mindset of, Zerei Ruchnius, right? I'm like, I want to bring Yidden to be partners with the Rebbe, to, be partners to bring Mashiach. It's like the biggest, it's a whole different,
Tell you a line that I use, especially when it came to the building when it was a big ask or bigger. I say, that's how I speak to Mr. Cohen. I'm like, I want to tell you something, Sam. I feel that it would be disrespectful and I would be remiss if I wouldn't give you the opportunity to be part of this.
hmm,
Because in this particular case, let's say, you're a community leader, you're a philanthropist, your name is on all these different places. I would be remiss, it would be disrespectful to you if I
hmm,
wouldn't give you the opportunity to be part of this. Now, let's say he's not a big donor, big wealthy guy, philanthropist. Let's say he's not a middle side, whatever it may be. You can still say the same thing, Mr. Cohen, Sam. I believe in this so much. I see the impact every day. I see the lives that we're touching. I see the fellow Jews who we are literally bringing into our family. I feel that I would be depriving you. I would be remiss. I would be disrespecting you. I wouldn't give you the opportunity to be part of it. You know what it means? That I could sat there at Shabbos meal in front of 100 college students celebrating Shabbos, and I know that you are part of this mitzvah. Like, how could I deny you of that opportunity? Okay, so some of it maybe is a little bit tongue in cheek, so he'll smile and it lightens it, but some of it is real. Taka is real. How can I? What a zechus would be? By the way, the Rebbe, quite a few stories. The Rebbe had a very strong approach to this whole thing about people feeling that their giving is a zechus for them. Ki Yadua, the story that they wanted to make a fundraiser for Likkutei Zechus.
Okay.
And it wasn't a massive fundraiser. It was the Zayats wanted to bring together some of his friends. The Rebbe was Shalom, Mikhail. And the
Right.
Rebbe said, yeah, the fundraiser asked people to come give what is so schus, if you want the schus of being part of the Zechus, you could grab that schus before someone else was. The same thing with Machan Chana. There was a whole story with JJ Heck. A certain fundraiser, there was my mother's name, take my mother's name off. We're going to hold the product. The idea is that it's a huge schus to be part of it. Practically, I'm not saying you shouldn't, everyone has, I'm just using the concept that we need to approach fundraising from we're mezaka this person, we're giving this person this unbelievable schus to be part of it. And it's real, it's not made up. So when you walk into that meeting, in your head, you're like, I'm about to change this guy's life. I'm about to give him an opportunity he never had before. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Sam, I'm very excited. I always use that line, by the way. I'm very excited. So in the middle of the conversation, when it comes time for the ask, instead of saying, Sam, I wanted to know if it's okay if I could talk to you about, no, Sam, I'm very
Right.
excited. I'm very excited because I have an amazing opportunity that I'm excited to share with you. I'm very excited.
Right.
First of all, you are excited because he's going to say yes, and Rich Hashem, you have a lot to be excited about. But you're also excited because you're genuinely excited to bring him on board. What a zechus for him. I encourage shluchim to read. Daher has a beautiful section about the Machne Yisrael and the whole parsha, how it started and how it went and everything. You go to the Daher archives and you could read it. It was a big zechus to be part of it. It's an unbelievable zechus. We are mezake yidden to have this zechus. The only thing we have to just put ourselves in that mind frame,
Right.
and it
Right.
changes everything. And
Yeah.
that's why I often send pictures to people, often who are not here but who are donors, and I say, "Look what you did today."
Hmm.
Constantly keep them in the loop. Share stories. I have a student who just got a period film for the first time in his life. Right away, I make sure to call a few people. Anytime something happens in your Chabad that's meaningful, you must write down the story in your phone. You must have stories written down on your phone. Even if you remember all of it, you could do a few words, or you could voice note it to yourself and use a transcriber, which is a very easy app on WhatsApp that transcribes it for you. And then you just save them. And you have pages of stories. I have pages of stories, the last 20 years of shlichus, and I always have stories to share with people, which inspires them, which moves them. Let them feel. Let them. You can't expect them to be excited if they don't see it. If they don't see it
Give
every
them
day.
the fruits of their
Actually, I
investment.
found recently that no one on my phone, on my computer gives me money. No one understands. I said, think. What's the last gift you got? And he says, oh, you know what? We had a big Shabbos. Some of my community came to help me shop. And then he's like, Rabbi, who's paying for all this? And I was like, oh, good morning, America. And that's what I fundraise for. He's like, oh, you don't tell us that. He's like, I try to. He's like, Rabbi, I want to sponsor this. And why did he do that? Because he saw it, because he felt it. So how can we help our people who we approach to feel the same excitement that we're feeling? So number one, you have to feel it and live it. You have to be really excited about it. Hopefully you are. Number two, you have to share with them. You have to tell them stories, show them pictures. When I go to important fundraising meetings, I don't take with me fancy presentations. I print one picture or maybe five pictures. And I printed 11 by 17, always 11 by 17, always big. First of all, a lot of donors are older, just the way it is in reality. But even if they're not big, they can see I walk in, I have a big picture of 5, 6 smile. Each one is another. One's tefillin, one's maybe with challah, smiling. And then I walk in, I say, look what you're doing, or look what you could do. And I share a story about one of the pictures. This kid, obviously only the first name out of respect, and I don't share anything personal, but share basic, key pointers about this person's life and about their involvement. And they get so excited about it, it moves them. You don't need any words, you don't need any fancy presentations, just big pictures. And then if you're excited and they feel that excitement, they'll be like, thank you, Rabbi.
Hmm.
I had a meeting on Thursday with somebody who's a big philanthropist, goes a lot of places, and somebody else made an introduction, a mutual friend. He doesn't give to Chabad anyone. He's not involved with Chabad. But I know he gives to a lot of places. I was thinking, how can I stand out? How can I be different? I'm coming, it was him and his wife coming to this meeting. How can I be different? So I want to share a few things I did because it's relevant to our conversation. Number one, I did what a lot of people, I did a lot of research about him, and I found out what he's passionate about. And I came to learn that he's involved with a Jewish organization, a national Jewish organization that is very into meditation and Jewish spirituality and all that. So I went through my program list and I pulled out 4 programs that are very much that nature.
Hmm.
For example, our weekly Farbrengen,
Hmm.
you know, Havdalah that we do. We have a beautiful fire pit now in the New Chabadas, so we do Havdalah around the fire and other things like that. I can get into details, and I basically took 4 pieces of paper. Each paper, had 2 big pictures of that thing. It's a very short description. So when we had the meeting and we started speaking, and I asked a lot of questions about them, always hear about the other person. The famous word that the most beloved word that every person loves more than anything is what? Their own name. People love talking about themselves. It's the way it is. So then I said, you're so passionate about this. And I have a great gift that God gave me that I have access to hundreds of young people. I want to make a match. I want to take your passion and I want to connect it with these young people so they
Hmm.
can derive benefit and be
Passionate
inspired.
about spiritual
Jewish
growth.
spirituality, meditation, spirituality, self growth. I said, so my role is to be the connector. I want to be the conduit. I want to be the pipe for your impact. So you're not blessed to be a shliach, to be a campus rabbi. I am. I want to be I want to be that conduit. Another line I often use to
Wow.
people, I say, I am the conduit for your impact. Okay, Yisachar Zvulun. I'm the conduit for your impact. So I would like to take your impact and I would like to channel it. And then I said, here, I want to show you. And I showed 4, I went through each one and said stories about each one and look at the picture. Wow. And then at the end, after the 4 pictures, the 5th page, I had a number I put down. I'd like to ask you to give this X amount. It's a big amount for the next 4 years, every year. And this will be your program, the Cohen Family Vibranian Series or whatever. They're very moved by that because I spoke their language. I spoke what talks to them. And they said yes to half of that number, which I knew was going to happen. It's a big number. Um, but the point I want to bring out is number one, I stood out because who comes to a meeting making it about the other person? Every meeting you go to, it's one of my students once said a line, actually, a very powerful line in front of a group of donors. He said, every time I meet people on campus, I know I come into the meeting, they have one question. What could they get out of the meeting from me? But when I meet with the rabbi and his wife, I know they have one agenda. What can they do for me?
Hmm.
When we walk into a fundraising meeting, it's not what can I get from him? What can I do for your neshama? So if you know what the person's passionate about, you want to try to see if there's a way that you can highlight areas of your shlichus, existing areas that tie in. Now the challenge becomes if they're passionate about something that doesn't really fit into your shlichus.
Right.
So for example, I have a donor who's very into Holocaust, and I don't believe so much in pouring money into Holocaust education. And because the Rebbe spoke clearly about the best way is moving forward is building more Jewish life, not crying about the past. So it's all tricky, but mental health's an example. I have donors that are very into mental health. I'm into mental health. I want to save Jewish lives. I'm sitting in a building that has
Right.
not 1, not 2, but 3 spaces that are a memory of 3 people I know who
Hmm.
died by suicide. So I believe in mental health. Fine. So a lot of our programs are meant. So that's point number one. It's about the other person. And the reason why I said that is it ties to everything we're talking about today, right? It's about them feeling their impact. It's about giving them the zechus. So when you walk in from that perspective, you're not nervous. You're not uncomfortable. What are you uncomfortable about?
Right.
Let me ask you, if you were going to someone's house to give them $1 million, would you be uncomfortable? You'd skip the steps as you come in.
Right. Right.
It's $1 million we're giving. You have to find the oisius and the visuals
Right.
to transmit that to that person. But if you believe it, which I hope you do, then find the ways to do it and visualize it. Use some pictures. Use the power of your words. Breathe your heart and emotion. Your kishkis. Talk about what happens in the Chabad house. And they'll feel like, they're like, wow, thank you for this gift. And the reason why I shared this is because it's leading me to the second thing that happened at the meeting, which happens almost every time. After I make the ask, I bring them in. I gift them the opportunity to give. I ask, and they say yes, and they say yes, whatever amount they give. The following question I always ask, and it always, every single time, blows them away and even moves them deeply to the extent some people actually had tears. So Sam says, Rabbi, we'll do it, or we'll do X amount. First, I say, Sam, thank you so much from my heart, from all of my students. It means a lot. I have a very important question I'd like to ask you. And they think I'm asking for, when are you going to give it? I said, how do you like to be thanked?
Hmm.
How can I ensure that you see and feel the impact of your investment? And it's
Hmm.
quiet. No one ever asked me that question before.
Wow.
No one ever, I get that all the time. And you know what the answer almost always is? Almost always the answer is, I say, how would you like to be thanked? Keep doing what you're doing.
Wow.
That's my thank you, because that's where I'm giving. So what happens is, when you ask that question, three things happen. Number one, you highlight to them how much you appreciate it and how your appreciation is central to the giving. And that's the first thing you're asking as soon as they give. Number two, it highlights to them how much they care because they're going to be surprised by their own response. And it
Hmm.
happens almost when they're going to respond to you, how did that? I don't
Right.
know, just keep doing it. They're like, wow, that's why I'm giving.
Right.
And number three, you're going to gain insight into them. So often what I do is after they tell me, I say, how would you like to be thanked? There's quiet. Often there's emotion. And then they say, keep doing what you're doing. I say, I appreciate that so much, but it's important to me that you know what impact you're having. So some of my people like often stories and numbers, and some people like updates from time to time. Some people like their name all over. What did you like? Just so I know your language, you know. So usually they'll say, yeah, let me from time to time. I'd love to hear how it's going, or don't worry about it, Rabbi. I got it. It's okay. Or yeah, that would be nice to put the name of my mother or something, you know. And of course, of course, of course, of course, right away, as soon as you leave the meeting, write down a lot of notes of everything that happened at that meeting. Among that, what they answered to that question. But the main thing I want to bring out is that all these details that I'm sharing about coming in with excitement and selling the product as a zechus and tying it into their passion and asking how you like to be thanked, it all stems from one core idea, one yesod. And the yesod is that this is a ruchnias dik
Hmm.
experience. This is not a
Wow.
transactional moment that I need money, you have it, give it to me. It's a ruchnias dik
Right.
experience. His neshama is connected to these yidden, and you're there to facilitate this whole thing. And if you really believe that, and he believes, and you get him to believe it, then the whole meeting is a joyful experience.
Wow.
It's a joyful experience. And if chas v'shalom the guy says no, it helps with the rejection because then the answer is okay. It wasn't part of his neshama. It wasn't. You know, it wasn't. This wasn't his beer.
Not yet. He's not yet ready.
He's not yet ready, or maybe this is not going to be his beer. Period. Or maybe at a later point.
Right.
But the more you really believe this, and that's going back to the beginning of this conversation today about the mindsets.
Right.
Mindset. Okay, we're going to talk about something else totally today,
Yeah.
actually.
That first of all, thank you so much. I think that was really, really valuable. All those nikudas, and how you brought it together at the end about like Pasha, seeing and creating fundraising as a ruchnistic experience. Not as like a shliach told me once, and I always hear this in different words, but like, oh, I wish I could just get back to shlichus. I don't have to do fundraising. It's like this necessary evil, this other thing that I have to do. You know, because it doesn't. It feels like okay, this is the shlichus. Where I'm giving, and now I have to like go ask and take. But like you said, in the mindset of
That gets me so nervous just hearing that because that first of all, I feel bad because then half your life is basically half
right.
your you know there was a conversation on a WhatsApp group of Counter Shluchim this week about how much we expose our students to fundraising and
Mhm.
how Shliach said I heard students I overheard students talking about it Friday night, and Rabbi has to fundraise, who pays for all this, whatever. And I so excited, I took the opportunity to speak about it. So another Shliach chimes in and says, yeah, we went shopping with a student, and he was like, Rabbi, who pays for all this? So another Shliach says that the fundraising at Chabad on campus is like it's like the birds and the bees conversation. Like no one
Mm.
knows exactly what, but we know somehow it happens. And I'm uncomfortable with the whole conversation because I think that fundraising is an uncomfortable thing to talk about to your students. If you're right, if it's transactional, but if it's a whole different story, like my students are blessed to know our big partners because I got them involved. They come for a Shabbos, and there's an neshama connection. I tell my students, there's a guy who doesn't even live here, who gave you the gift of a house, of a Chabad house, because his neshama is connected to your neshama. And it's not uncomfortable. It's not. It's it's it strengthens the bond and the family connection. I tell them, here's a Jew who never met you, who cares about you. Think about it for a moment. Here's a Jew. You have people who know you very well who don't care about you. Your roommates, your friends, maybe even your brother. Here's a guy who never met you, but he cares about you, that he's sponsoring a Shabbos dinner for you to have a positive Jewish experience. I want to meet that guy. Like, so that conversation, framing it that way makes it very comfortable. There's nothing uncomfortable about it. This is not how, generally speaking, fundraising is done in the Jewish community. Any Jewish organization I give money to, again, I'm not a big, I'm talking about, whatever it is. It's very transactional. I get once a year, I get a call, you give it, and that's it. Very transactional,
Right.
including Rabbi. I'm talking about even like general Jewish moised, but including the Rabbi Zalman Teichtel, including shlichus. Think about charity, right? During December, there's a million campaigns. How many of us give to multiple campaigns? We do. Small amounts, but we do, right? Uncle, brother, cousin, friend. When's the next time you're going to hear from that guy? Next December. No question about it. Go to your WhatsApp and look. When's the last time you got a message from that guy? It's a whole
Yeah.
different conversation, not for now.
For the next time.
We touched about it
Uh,
last time, about
right.
relationship fundraising and all that.
Right.
Point I want to bring out is that if fundraising is a ruchnistic thing and it's a zechus, then it's not uncomfortable to talk about. And I'm very open about it to my students. They know about it. I bring them sometimes to certain meetings, including this morning,
Wow.
and they love it. It grows on them.
Wow. One harder on everything that we talked about. I saw this in the letter of the Rebbe. Famous story about how the Baal Shem Tov, you know, took his handkerchief and crossed the river,
Right,
right?
right.
So, but I saw the Rebbe write this. The Rebbe says, "Can you do a pisgah of Baal Shem Tov that every yid can cross a river with a handkerchief if he only believes."
Mamish. Did ever references a story, or they ever just says that line?
No, as a hayra,
Ah,
l'Rebbe. Every
I
yid
didn't throw a lot.
cross.
Never knew that ever said that.
Every yid can cross. So you're talking about like how mindset is. When we believe something, it changes the whole.
I do
Changes the
think,
whole.
from my own, what I'm saying now is from my own life experience, not like as a mashpia, because that's not who I am, but from my own life experience, um, I do see that when I'm aligned with that wavelength, when I'm tuned in to that channel, that frequency, then I see miracles happen, Lamayla Manateva. And when I forget about that frequency and I'm convinced that it has to work al piteva, it
Hmm.
doesn't work. So I
Wow.
clearly see many, many stories that push it like that. Like, I mean, Marshall, even like buying the property here, um, we had one property for 18 years, and it's an amazing location. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at campus right across the street, but there's no way we could build in that lot. It was too small. We had to buy a lot next door. And even that first lot, by the way, I tried to buy it for 2.5 years. The guy didn't want to sell it. And I went to the oil. I flew in. I went to the oil. Remember it like today. And I wrote to the Rebbe that this is a story. I wrote the name of the guy, the non-Jewish guy who's not selling. And I said, I need you to do something because this is the best space. And I came out of the oil, I turned my phone on. I had a voicemail while I was in the oil. I had a voicemail
Hmm.
saying, "Yeah, Rabbi, this is Brian. My sister and I decided we'll sell you the property." Kipshute
Wow.
mamish. So
Wow.
then we had that for 18 years, and then we had to buy the property next door in order to build. And incidentally, we started the whole building process before we even had it because I was so sure we're going to get it, and we weren't getting it. And we tried everything up Pitava. I'm talking about credible offers, as is cash, everything. It should have worked. Like there was no reason why it shouldn't have worked. Then the story is that every time I met the guy, I would try all these different techniques, and nothing was working. He didn't want to sell it. It was a rental property. He was making good money. And then what ended up happening was one of my students died. The kid who was very involved with the Chabad house, he took his own life. And it was on a Tuesday. And I made up to meet this guy Wednesday morning. And he's like, I made up 2 weeks or 3 weeks before. And he's like, what's the point of meeting, Rabbi? We're already exhausted. I said, I have one more amazing idea. And I did not have any idea, but I was just going to try it one more time. And Tuesday, I ended up spending the whole night, Tuesday night with the family. And it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. And I was ice mensch. I really wasn't a keli for it. Now, I didn't want to go. And my wife was saying, you should go. You made up. So I walk into Starbucks, 9 a.m. I'm very broken. Now, what am I going to say? So on the way, I stopped at the Chabad house and I told the guy here in my office, I said, print for me 2 pictures. Print for me a picture of the house. It's a house, the lot. It was an ugly house, like a rental, and which had no sentimental value to him. It was just a good rental for him, the duplex. And then I said, print for me a picture of this kid. We had an amazing picture of this kid at our. This was 2 weeks after Pesach, of this kid at our seder. And for some reason, everyone sat down, and right before Lichtenstein, everyone lived by the tables. Right before Lichtenstein, my wife and I stood in the middle. And we were introducing everything to everybody. And this kid, for some odd reason, jumped up and he like posed between me and my wife. We have this crazy picture of me,
Hmm.
my wife, his in between, and the whole Seder behind us. And two
Hmm.
weeks later, he was gone. It was a very weird story. And I printed that. I printed these 2 pictures, 11 by 17. And I came in. I said, Joe, I want to tell you something. I'm right now not in a position really to meet with you. He's like, what's going on? So I told him, and I started crying. And I said, look, this is your house. This is what it looks like. This is going to stay like this for the next 100 years. Or you could create this. Look at this smile. And the last smiles this kid had in his lifetime. And this picture is carrying his parents, carrying them through tremendous grief. And I said, you make the choice. You tell me, Joe, what do you think? It was a mile and a tema. It was a total. He
Wow.
looked at me and said, Rabbi, I want to sell you that property.
Wow.
We closed less than 4 weeks later. And I'm sitting today in the building, in the Chabad house,
Hmm.
massive building on that lot.
Wow.
And this story always reminds me that as much as you think Teva, 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 bottom line is Neshama, Philonishtayid, the guy, the seller. If you come in and you use the Kayach of the Meshaleach and you understand that it's a Ruchnis Inyan, we're just playing our part. We're just doing our role. We just can't get confused and convince ourselves that we're the one doing it.
Wow. Wow.
I think this has to sink in a little bit. I think that just the kuda is something which I wasn't going to talk about, but I'm glad it came up because this has the potential to it's a paradigm shift. I once had a little project for myself of going through letters from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe talks about tzedakah, asking people for money. As we know, in the earlier years, befrat, especially even in the tough shins, the late tough shins, um, late tough shins meaning the late of the Frierdiker Rebbe's life, tough ches, tough tes, tough zayin. The Rebbe was involved in a lot of these things. And you read these fundraising letters that the Rebbe sends to people, either as a thank you or as an ask. So all very, very ruchnistic Indian. The Rebbe speaks about it from a very ruchnistic standpoint.
Hmm.
And I've seen that really has a big impact on our mind shift and how we think about it and how we talk about it. And by the way, you can even use that for people. Like if the meeting's not going great or if the guy's pushing back, you could even be like, listen, I'm not a fundraiser. I'm not a fundraiser. I, I'm a shliach here to change the world and to save the future of the Jewish people. And I'm here today to gift you the opportunity to be part of it. And I apologize if maybe I don't have the answers to all your questions. One thing I can guarantee you, I'll get back to you on that. I actually have a guy who is a very big Balstaka, and he always asks hard questions. And he came to get a tour of the building, and he brought with him a friend, not telling me he's bringing this friend. And I was giving a tour. In the middle of the tour, the guy's asking questions. They're both asking questions. The guy who I invited turns to his friend who he schlepped along, and he says, "You know what I like about this guy? I can ask him every question, or he'll give me an answer, or he'll tell me I don't know. I'll get the information and I'll bring it back to you." And he said, "I give to so many organizations," which he does, oh, big, big, big money. Never have that. Never have that.
Hmm.
They don't give me information. They don't know what they're talking about. So I think being open is not only it's fine, it's supported. So verbringen with make the ask into a verbringen. And you can even say, sometimes I say this. Sometimes I say, I'm not really so comfortable with this because I don't know you well enough, and I'm not sure exactly, what talks to you. So I'm going to share with you what's on my heart and what I believe is a great opportunity for you. But I need you to tell me. I'll go where you take me. Tell me if this doesn't talk to you and if there's something else that talks to you. So
Hmm.
if it's a Fabrengen and if it's that kind of conversation, then it's so much more comfortable
Wow.
for you and for them.
Something I heard you thank you, that's beautiful. Something I heard you share, and I don't know if that was the point you're trying to make, but I heard it, which is that, like, a person can think, like, I need to, show like I'm professional, I need to show like I have it all together, I have all the answers, you know? And adrab, like, being able to have the humility, like, "Oh, I actually don't know the answer to that question, let me try to get back to you." Like, that is more appreciated and more impactful than, like, being, impressive and, Kilu has
Yeah,
all the answers.
because you're being real.
Right.
Just bring the real you into the meeting. The same koyach you use to makar a yid, which is so matzliach, the same way you put tefillin on a yid, and it's such a positive experience for that Jew. That same koyach is what you use for fundraising. You're in hashpah mode. The hashpah is done differently, but you're in the same hashpah mode. And that's why you can even bring in a ruchnitzige thing, bring in a word from the parsha, even in the ask itself. Last week I had a fundraising meeting, and I told the guy that I said, Moshe Rabbeinu came out of the palace. What's the first thing he did? First thing he did was actually also Sicha from last week. Other nice thing of Sicha is you always have material to share from the Rebbe. What did he do? The first thing he did is Yar Sivleisam. He saw the pain of the Yid. So I said to him, "You're somebody who you live that by that. You wake up in the morning. You're not just checking your market. How's the market doing for you today? Yar Sivleisam. You care about the Jewish people. You're thinking about the Jews in Israel under attack. You think about people who are hungry in Bulgaria. I know you care. You embody that. And I feel the same. I lose sleep at night thinking about my students who sadly are disconnected from the Jewish people. So we both share that passion. Me, you, and Moshe Rabbeinu. So together, let's figure out what we can do to carry the burden. I even taught him the word pekel. I said,
Hmm.
"Oh, pekel." I never heard the word pekel. I heard the word shmekel, not pekel. So I said pekel. I wrote it down for him. I said, "You carry another yid's pekel." That's what we're here for today. We're carrying another yid's pekel.
Wow.
So no big chedushim. Just to verbrengen. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim Zalman.
We should be zeichet just
Yeah.
to manifest. I really like that word manifest because that's really what we're doing. We're manifesting. Like the story of Rabbi Yale. If we learn, if we internalize it, if we live by it, then we're just manifesting. And if they'd ever walked into that meeting, the guy would say, yes, absolutely. So if we manifest well enough, we'll get that same yes, without a question. If I could ever help any shliach, I really have zechus to connect. So feel free to reach out to whoever's listening to this. Send me a WhatsApp. I like voice notes. It's easier than phone calls. So anytime. L'chaim, l'chaim, shkech, tzviki, yatzlachem, what you're doing.
Thank you, Zalman Amen. Thank you for
We ended up
sharing.
going in a whole different place we were planning on, but at least we got the verbrengen.
Perfect. It was perfect. And Eibusher should give you,
Um,
continued keches and hatzlacha and thank you. Bez
Amen.
Hashem,
L'chaim, l'chaim.
yeah, many people will benefit. And Take care.